We're live from New Delhi. You're watching DT India News, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Kurana. Coming up in the next hour. India's Home Secretary to hold meeting on civil defence today. 244 categorised districts up to village level begin preparation. Israel Security Cabinet approves plan to capture Gaza, also approves plan to deliver aid through private companies. US extends support even as the UN and other aid agencies decry to move. Donald Trump administration freezes future grants to Harvard, demands policy changes mainly regarding anti-Semitism on campus. All 133 Catholic cardinals who will vote for a new pope to begin moving into the Vatican accommodation where they will stay during the conclave on the eve of their historic secretive meeting to elect a new pope. And on to the details now. Amid escalating tensions between India and Pakistan, Union Home Secretary Govind Mohan has called a meeting regarding civil defence at 10:45 a.m. IST. The Chief Secretaries and heads of civil defence from across the country will participate in the meeting via video conferencing. Preparations for civil defence are being made in 244 districts of the country. And as India's Home Ministry has asked several states to conduct a mock drill for effective civil defence on the 7th of May, preparations for civil defence are being made in 244 categorised districts of the country. The following measures will be undertaken. 1. The operationalisation of air raid warning sirens. 2. The training of civilians, including students, on civil defence aspects to protect themselves in the event of a hostile attack. 3rd, provision of crash blackout measures. 4th, provision for early camouflaging of vital plants or installations. And 5th, updation of an evacuation plan and its rehearsal. Well, as the tensions between India and Pakistan escalate in the wake of the Pahalgam terrorist attack, the United Nations Security Council held closed-door consultations on the current situation. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has said he understands the feelings following the awful terror attack in Pahalgam and reiterated his strong condemnation of that attack. Extending his condolences to the families of the victims, he voiced concern over tensions between India and Pakistan being at their highest in years. Unlike formal sessions held in the UNSC chamber, this consultation is taking place in a separate room next to the chamber.
I once again strongly condemn that attack and extend my condolences to the families of the victims. Targeting civilians is unacceptable, and those responsible must be brought to justice through credible lawful means. It is also essential, especially at this critical hour, to avoid a military confrontation that could easily spin out of control. Now is the time for maximum restraint and stepping back from the brink. That has been my message in my ongoing outreach with both countries. Make no mistake, a military solution is no solution. And I offer my good offices to both governments in the service of peace. The United Nations stands ready to support any initiative that promotes de-escalation, diplomacy, and the renewed commitment to peace.
Well, another incident of ceasefire violation was reported on the intervening night of 5th and 6th of May. Pakistan Army resorted to unprovoked small arms firing from posts across the line of control in areas opposite Kupwara, Baramulla, Poonch, Rajouri, Mindhar, Naushera, Sundarbani and Akhnur in Jammu and Kashmir. Indian Army responded in a proportionate manner. And for more on this, we are joined by Vishal Baristo from Srinagar. Well, good morning, Vishal. How is the current situation there? What's the status as far as the tourists are also concerned?
Well, a very good morning to you, Lipakshi. The situation is quite tense here, though the tourists are still trickling in, but definitely there is an uneasy calm. I will ask my cameraman to first show you the visuals here. I am here at the Dal Lake, which should have been bubbling with life, but there you see it is so calm and quiet here. Even the shikaras, they have been parked near the banks, and the boat people, they are waiting for tourists to come and serve them with some kind of economic help, but the purpose stands defeated after the Pahalgam attack. Meanwhile, as you informed our viewers that the ceasefire violations continue on the LOC, it's been the 12th day as informed by the Indian Army. Later last night from Buchipora, Kavusa area of Badgam, during a Naka check, two suspected terror associates were arrested with arms and ammunition. So the situation continues to be tense. The overground workers are being searched for. The search operation is cordoning and search operation is on in the high reaches and also across the valley. And India is taking all steps to punish Pakistan. One such step is blocking the river water to Pakistan so that during the summers it feels the suffering of the killing of the people here in Pahalgam. Lipakshi.
All right, Vishal, thank you so much for all those details. And moving on, in a heart-warming moment of solidarity, the city of Palmerston North in New Zealand stood still as over 150 residents from different communities, different states came together to stand against terrorism. With placards, flyers and silent prayers, the locals organized a mourning to condemn the barbaric terrorist attack in Pahalgam. Banners in hands and sorrow in hearts, this was a true show of unity against brutality and bloodshed. Well, India has temporarily halted the flow of water from the Baghlihar Dam on the Chenab River to Pakistan. New Delhi plans to also halt the flow of water from the Kishanganga Dam on the Jhelum River. The latest Indian countermeasure for the Pahalgam terror attack coincides with the publication of a Moody's ratings report, which says that Pakistan cannot afford a war with India given its dire economic situation.
India has cut the flow of water from the Chenab River to Pakistan. The gates of the Salal Dam, built in Baghlihar and Riyasi in Jammu, have been closed. It follows New Delhi's decision to keep the Indus Waters Treaty in abeyance in the wake of the 22nd April Pahalgam terror attack. According to reports, the Indian government is also planning to close the Kishanganga Dam on the Jhelum River. The flow of water in the Chenab River has since drastically reduced. The latest Indian countermeasure coincides with a Moody's report that says Pakistan does not have the money for a war with India. The global ratings firm says that a persistent increase in tensions could also impair Pakistan's access to external financing and pressure its foreign exchange reserves, which remain well below what is required to meet its external debt payment needs for the next few years. In contrast, Moody's says that India's macroeconomic conditions would be stable, bolstered by moderating but still high levels of growth and strong public investment and healthy private consumption. Meanwhile, Pakistan hosted Iran's foreign minister on Monday. An Iranian diplomat was reported as saying that the India-Pakistan tensions would be on the agenda of Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi's talks in Islamabad. Araghchi is expected to visit New Delhi later this week. Bureau Report, DD India.
Well, while Pakistan is flexing its muscles, testing missiles and making tall claims of war preparedness, the reality is otherwise. India's retaliatory steps in the aftermath of the Pahalgam terror attack have threatened the backbone of a limping Pakistani economy. Banned Pakistani ships, imports and postal services have dealt a big blow to Pakistan's economy, which is already in shambles. In the next report, ET India's Raghav Kumar Jha delves deeper into Pakistan's economic crisis and tells you why Pakistan cannot afford a war with India.
Struggling with a wrecked economy, Pakistan faces significant challenges like rising poverty, high inflation, and persistent debt issues. The country's economy has been badly impacted by factors like the COVID-19 pandemic, inflation, poor economic development, corruption, political unrest, and the effects of Russia-Ukraine war. According to reports, Pakistan has foreign exchange reserves of only $13.15 billion, whereas it has to pay foreign debts of $26 billion in the financial year 2025-26. Pakistan's GDP is at $338.37 billion, and it has only enough money to import goods for 2 months. In fact, Pakistan's economy is in shambles. A persistently high current account deficit and external debt obligations drained its foreign exchange reserves. By 2023, the country faced a severe balance of payment crisis, with reserves falling below $4 billion, enough for just a few weeks of imports. Pakistan is heavily reliant on external aid, particularly from the United States, China, and the international financial institutions like the International Monetary Fund or IMF. Pakistan's exports base remained narrow while imports grew consistently. Periodic IMF bailouts, more than 20 programs since 1980s, became a hallmark of Pakistan's economic policy. Each bailout brought temporary stability, but structural reforms were either delayed or diluted due to corruption. However, this is not the end of Pakistan's economic woes. The tougher times are ahead as India's retaliatory steps in the aftermath of Pahalgam terror attack threaten to break its crucial economic support links. India has imposed a blanket ban on direct or indirect import and transit of all goods originating in or exported from Pakistan following the closure of the Wagah-Atari trade route. The halt is likely to disrupt Pakistan's pharmaceutical, chemical, and food sectors, which depend heavily on Indian inputs. Informal trade via third countries like the UAE and Singapore will also come under strain due to heightened security and costs. India has barred all ships bearing the Pakistani flag from entering Indian ports and has suspended all maritime activities. Also, all postal and courier services in Pakistan stand suspended. Against this backdrop, the global rating agency Moody's has also warned Pakistan. The rating agency said on Monday that a sustained escalation in tensions with India would likely hit Pakistan's economy and hamper the government's ongoing fiscal consolidation. It warned the Indo-Pak tensions could impair Pakistan's access to external financing and put foreign exchange reserves, which is significantly low to meet existing debts, under severe stress. Amidst an economic crisis ridden by low reserves and high debts, Pakistan is running the country taking loans from the IMF. On May 9th, a crucial meeting of the IMF will be held regarding the next tranche of loan disbursal to Pakistan. According to reports, there are multiple factors including corruption and allegations of state-sponsored terrorism which may spoil Pakistan's loan prospect, in which case it will be another blow to the debt-ridden Pakistan. Against this backdrop, if Pakistan wages war with India, it will have to spend an estimated $1.5 to $3.2 million per day or $45 to $96 million per month, putting considerable pressure on Pakistan's defense budget of $7.64 billion. Amidst all this, how Pakistan will handle all this extraordinary stress on its economy is a million-dollar question. Raghav Kumar Jha for DD India.
Well, the Defence Research and Development Organisation and the Indian Navy have successfully tested the multi-influence ground mine, an advanced underwater weapon designed to counter stealth ships and submarines. The system was developed by India's Naval Science and Technological Laboratory in Visakhapatnam in collaboration with DRDO labs in Pune and Chandigarh. Defence Minister of India Rajnath Singh praised the development, stating that it would boost India's undersea warfare capabilities. The successful test marks a significant step in strengthening India's naval defence against modern threats. And the Supreme Court will commence final hearing from today on the appeals filed in the 2002 Godhra train burning case. A bench of Justices J.K. Maheshwari and Rajesh Bindal is scheduled May 6th and 7th for starting the final hearing. Appeals were filed by the Gujarat government and several other convicts against the Gujarat High Court's 2017 order. The Gujarat High Court had in 2017 in its order had upheld a total of 31 convictions in the case and commuted the death penalties of the 11 convicts to life terms in the case. The incident took place on February 27, 2002, resulting in the brutal killing of 59 persons in a fire inside the S6 coach of the Sabarmati Express, triggering communal riots in Gujarat. And still to come on DD India News Hour. Trump slaps 100% tariff on foreign films, shaking global cinema industry. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney meets Trump amid trade war and annexation tensions. Russia downs swarm of Ukrainian drones near Moscow as cross-border tensions intensify.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Nipakshi Kuran, and moving on, the entertainment industry reacted with alarm and bafflement on Monday after President Donald Trump said he would impose a 100% tariff on all movies produced outside the U.S. Film industry experts said that plans by U.S. President Donald Trump to put a 100% tariff on all movies produced outside the U.S. could lead to higher prices for film productions and movie tickets.
The whole movie industry at the moment is in a crisis already. We had COVID, which had a huge impact on movie going. We had dual strikes in the United States, which shut down production for a long period of time. The Hollywood and the film industry is really struggling to recover from those major impacts. If we add on top of that extra costs of production or these tariffs, it could really have disastrous effect on the industry.
Well, meanwhile, to ward off criticism of the move, Donald Trump has clarified that all he wants is to help the industry.
Film industry has been decimated by other countries taking them out, and also by incompetence, like in Los Angeles. The governor is a grossly incompetent man. He's just allowed it to be taken away from, Hollywood. Hollywood doesn't do very much of that business. They have the nice sign and everything's good, but they don't do very much. A lot of it's been taken to other countries, and a big proportion. And I'm actually going to meet with some because, there's some advantages, I guess, and I'm not looking to hurt the industry. I want to help the industry.
Well, also, the Trump administration has announced that Harvard University will be barred from receiving any new federal research grants until it complies with the set of demands laid out by the White House. Well, the move represents the latest salvo from a Trump administration willing to use the power of the federal purse to force institutions, from law firms to universities, to make sweeping policy changes or else lose billions of dollars in federal grants and contracts. Trump has targeted Harvard over allegations of anti-Semitism on campus during pro-Palestinian protest. The protest was sparked by U.S. ally Israel's military assault on Gaza after the October 2023 attack on Israel by Hamas. In recent weeks, the administration began a formal review into nearly $9 billion in federal funding for Harvard, demanded the university ban diversity, equity and inclusion practices, then cracked down on some pro-Palestinian groups and mosques in protest. Well, the Trump administration has announced that Harvard University, in fact, will be barred from receiving any new federal research grants until the Harvard University complies with a set of demands laid out by the White House. In fact, in a move representing the latest salvo from a Trump administration willing to use the power of the federal purse to force institutions from law firms to universities to make sweeping policy changes or else lose billions of dollars in federal grants and contracts. And for more, we have Akshay Dongre joining us for this. Well, Akshay, what impact is President Trump's 100% tariff on foreign films especially expected to have on the cinema industry there?
Well, what we are seeing at this point about the tariffs on cinema, especially if you talk about Bollywood, the movies that are created, made, produced and directed and shot as well outside the US, anywhere around the world. If they are not produced in the US, if they are produced anywhere else, like the Bollywood industry, most of it is made either in Europe or in India. So as far as release of these movies are concerned, the taxes are concerned, they will be charged about 100% of tariffs on the movies. Now, how practical that would be for the viewers of those movies to pay double the price, that remains to be seen. However, this seems to be quite an unprecedented move as far as the US history is concerned regarding the movies. The kind of tariffs that are being brought into the cinema world, especially on the grounds of being, filmed as far as territories are concerned. This is quite new, even to the US or anywhere in the world as far as these kind of tariffs are concerned. Because if you look at the movies that are made in US or around the world, they are negligible, except if you leave the US movies or Hollywood movies out of it, because the charges are quite high as far as making these movies are concerned in the US territory or on US soil. So the charges are ultimately to be borne by the viewers, the people who are going to watch those movies. However, there is slight chance that the number of people who are going for those movies will drop drastically given the price increase of about 100%.
All right. Also, Akshay, as the Trump administration has decided to bar the Harvard University from receiving new federal research grants, what impact can that have?
Well, there is going to be a major impact as far as Harvard is concerned. Both US administration and Harvard have been logged into this controversial situation where there are certain policies that Trump administration are going to wants to implement in the US in the Harvard as far as screening of students are concerned, especially immigrants, the kind of activities that take place on the campus, which the Trump administration has been calling anti-Semitic, racial, and quite honestly, so these are certain things that are going to be a problem as far as a solution is concerned. But the kind of $2.2 billion grant that has already been frozen, along with that tax exempt status that Trump administration is trying to remove Harvard from, is going to have a lot of impact, especially on the immigrant students who will not be able to get scholarships or get enrolled at a lesser cost. Because honestly, these schools do charge exorbitant price if you pay for full courses. So it will not be accessible for a lot of students, which perhaps will also lessen the number of immigrant students coming in to Harvard. However, the president is saying that the university is not going to budge, but without the grants, it is going to be difficult to control a university such as Harvard and the kind of functioning that it has.
All right. Thank you so much, Akshay, for all those details and insights. And US President Donald Trump signed an executive order on Monday that aims to reduce the time it takes to approve pharmaceutical plants in the country as part of new regulations to encourage domestic manufacturing. Well, Trump signed the order during an event in the Oval Office in which he also told reporters he would make announcements in the coming weeks on the cost of drugs as well as pharmaceutical tariffs. Last month, the Trump administration launched probes into imports of pharmaceuticals and semiconductors as it looks to impose tariffs on both sectors on ground. On Monday, Trump also signaled an order that bans federal funding for gain-of-function research and typically enhances pathogens. And U.S. military personnel reinforced barbed wire fencing along the border with Ciudad Juarez on Monday, while Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum reiterated her rejection of U.S. President Donald Trump's offer to send U.S. troops to combat drug trafficking. Sheinbaum's comments had come in response to questions about a recent Wall Street Journal report that said Trump was pressuring Mexico to allow deeper U.S. military involvement against drug cartels across the shared border. Trump has said publicly that the U.S. would take unilateral military action if Mexico failed to dismantle drug cartels. And Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney is in the United States for a high-stake meeting with Donald Trump as the American president continues his trade war and annexation threats against Canada. The White House visit comes just a week after Carney led the Liberals to their fourth consecutive election victory. The U.S. and Canada have been locked in a dispute over automotive and other tariffs imposed by Trump. Carney has termed the U.S. actions as a betrayal and says Canada must reduce its reliance on the United States, which takes 75% of all Canadian exports. The talks are also expected to focus on creating new security and defense ties. And ahead of the meeting, Trump has said he was unsure why Canadian Prime Minister was coming to see him, but said, I guess he wants to make a deal.
What's your expectation for your meeting with the Canadian Prime Minister tomorrow?
I don't know, he's coming to see me. I'm not sure what he wants to see me about, but I guess he wants to make a deal. Everybody does. They all want to make a deal because we have something that they all want.
And now some Russia-Ukraine updates. Tensions have escalated between the two countries as Russian officials announced that their air defense units destroyed a swarm of Ukrainian drones targeting Moscow for the second night in a row, prompting the closure of the capital's airports. Mayor Sergei Sobyanin said that at least 19 Ukrainian drones were destroyed on their approach to Moscow from different directions. On Tuesday, Russia's air defense units destroyed 4 Ukrainian drones on their approach to Moscow with no damage or injuries reported. Ukraine says its drone attacks are aimed at destroying infrastructure key to Moscow's overall war efforts and are in response to Russia's continued assault on Ukrainian territory, including residential areas and energy infrastructure. And meanwhile, Israel has approved an expanded military operation in Gaza aiming to displace most of its 2.4 million residents amid ongoing conflict with Hamas. The plan, which involves territorial conquest, has drawn global concern, especially from the United Nations, warning of a worsening humanitarian crisis. A senior Israeli official confirmed the operation includes a large-scale evacuation and a voluntary transfer program for civilians. Israel says the operation is essential to defeat Hamas and secure hostage releases. Israel also plans to control humanitarian aid to prevent Hamas from accessing supplies. Far-right ministers have pushed for using aid only to promote Palestinian immigration, prompting accusations of political blackmail from Hamas.
The operation will include a broad attack, including the evacuation of the most of the population of the Gaza Strip. This is in the order to protect them away from Hamas.
Meanwhile, Israel has said that before expanding its operation in Gaza, it will allow a window for a hostage deal during a visit by U.S. President Donald Trump to West Asia. The U.S. President is due to visit Saudi Arabia, Qatar and the United Arab Emirates from May 13th to the 15th. And in a latest, an Israeli defense official has said that its expanded operation in Gaza would not be launched before the U.S. president concludes his visit next week to West Asia. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said an expanded offensive against Hamas would be intensive after his security cabinet approved plans that may include seizing the Gaza Strip and controlling aid. While Netanyahu said in a video message the operation would be intensive and work to see more Palestinians in Gaza moved for their own safety, he said Israeli troops would not follow previous tactics based on short raids by forces based outside Gaza. The intention is the opposite, he said, echoing comments from other Israeli officials who have said Israel would hold on the ground it has seized. And Israeli officials have confirmed that the Israeli Air Force conducted airstrikes on Yemen's port city of Hadouda in retaliation for the Houthi ballistic missile attack near Tel Aviv's Ben Gurion airport, which injured several civilians. The the escalation in Israel's regional military operations. Just prior to Israel's response, U.S. forces reportedly carried out airstrikes near Yemen's capital, Sana'a, signaling coordinated pressure against Houthi forces. Over the past year, the Israel Defense Forces have conducted multiple strikes in Yemen, targeting Houthi missile and drone launch sites. The Houthis, aligned with Iran, have frequently targeted Israel amid broader regional tensions tied to a Gaza conflict. The recent Israeli retaliation highlights the widening scope of the conflict, pulling it in actors across West Asia. These developments risk further destabilizing an already volatile region, while growing concerns over escalation between Israel, Iran-aligned groups and U.S. involvement in Yemen. And still to come on DT India News Hour. U.S. court blocks Donald Trump's bid to end legal status for 400,000 migrants. New Zealand proposes under-16 social media ban following Australia's lead in big tech crackdown. And Bolivia faces a colossal garbage disposal crisis even as conflict over waste disposal enters the second consecutive week.
Goa, an adventure paradise like none other. From lush forests to rugged hills, from pristine ocean beach stretches to stunning lakes, there is something to explore in every corner of the state. And some adventures are wilder than others. Watch Postcards from Goa on National Geographic.
Welcome back. You're watching DT India News. I'm Lipakshi Kuran, and time now for a quick recap of the headlines. India's Home Secretary to hold meeting on civil defence today. 244 categorised districts up to village level begin preparation. Israel Security Cabinet approves plan to capture Gaza, also approves plan to deliver aid through private companies. US extends support even as UN and other aid agencies decry the move. Donald Trump's administration freezes future grants to Harvard, demands policy changes mainly regarding anti-Semitism on campus. All 133 Catholic Cardinals who will vote for a new pope to begin moving into the Vatican accommodation where they will stay during the conclave on the eve of the historic secretive meeting to elect a new pope. But a federal appeals court rejected on Monday a request by U.S. President Donald Trump's administration to allow it to revoke the temporary legal status of hundreds of thousands of Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans and Venezuelans living in the United States. The administration's action marked an expansion of the Republican president's hardline crackdown on immigration push to ramp up deportations, including of non-citizens previously granted a legal right to live and work in the United States. While the case was pending, the Homeland Security Department on March 25th announced in a Federal Register notice that it had decided to terminate the 2-year parole granted to about 400,000 Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans and Venezuelan migrants. Well, the Trump administration will offer a $1,000 stipend and travel assistance to migrants who elect to voluntarily self-deport from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. The stipend and potential airfare for migrants who voluntarily depart would cost less than an actual deportation. Trump reviewed the stipend plan in April, saying the U.S. would consider allowing migrants to return. And Romanian Prime Minister Marcel Ciolacu resigned on Monday, a day after a far-right opposition leader won the first round of the presidential election rerun. Ciolacos said his centre-left Social Democrats would withdraw from the pro-Western coalition, while cabinet ministers will stay on in an interim capacity until a new majority emerges after the presidential runoff. Hard-right Eurosceptic George Simeon swept the ballot on Sunday and will face Bucharest Mayor Nikos Erdan, an independent centrist, in a May 18th runoff. Coalition candidate Crin Antonsenko came third. Although Ciolacos' leftist Social Democrats won the most seats in December 1st parliamentary election, Simeon's AUR and two other far-right groupings won more than a third of the seats to become a clear political force. Well, all 133 Catholic cardinals eligible to vote for the next pope have arrived in Rome ahead of the conclave starting on Wednesday. These leaders from 70 countries are engaged in discussions on key church matters before they enter the Sistine Chapel. The process follows strict secrecy, with ballots burned after each vote. Black smoke will indicate no decision, while white smoke will signify the selection of a new pope. While some front-runners such as Italian Cardinal Pietro Parolin and Filipino Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle have been named, many cardinals remain undecided on who will lead the church forward. The conclave, steeped in centuries-old tradition, could last for days or even weeks. The world watches as Catholic leaders take on their historic responsibility in shaping the church's future. And one of the most prestigious recognitions in journalism, the Pulitzer Prize Board on Monday announced the winners of its 2025 awards. The New York Times secured 4 awards across multiple categories. The Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal also received honors for their high-impact reporting on key political and societal issues. The Times also received awards in other categories for its wide-ranging coverage of global and national stories. Reuters was awarded the Pulitzer Prize for investigating reporting for its expansive series Fentanyl Express, which exposed the international supply chains behind the opioid crisis in the United States. The story, A Death in Alabama by Mark Warren, earned the magazine's its first ever Pulitzer for feature writing. Well, OpenAI has dialed back a significant restructuring plan, with its non-profit parent retaining control in a move that is likely to limit CEO Sam Altman's power over the pioneering maker of ChatGPT. The announcement follows a storm of criticism and legal challenges, including a high-profile lawsuit filed by rival and co-founder Elon Musk, who has accused OpenAI of straying from its founding mission to develop artificial intelligence for the benefit of humanity. The move to an outright for-profit was intended to help OpenAI raise more capital and ease restrictions tied to its non-profit parent, but it sparked concerns over whether the company would fairly allocate assets to the non-profit and how it would balance profit-making with its mission to develop AI for the public good. And celebrations commemorated the 80th anniversary of victory in Europe Day, with crowds witnessing a military parade and fly-past alongside members of the British royal family on Monday. Over 1,300 personnel from Britain's armed forces paraded through central London, marching from outside Parliament to Buckingham Palace. They were observed by the King, who saluted them as they passed. Accompanied by Queen Camilla, Prince William and Princess Kate, Prime Minister Keir Starmer and veterans of the war, Monday's parade concluded with a flypast of historic aircraft and the Red Arrows as crowds below waved Union Jack flags. In 1945, EA Day was greeted by wild celebrations in London and across Britain. While stressing the need to protect children from the perils of big tech platforms, New Zealand's Prime Minister proposed banning children under 16 from social media. Prime Minister Christopher Luxon unveiled draft laws that would force social media companies to verify users were at least 16 years old or face fines of up to $1.2 million. The proposed ban was modelled on that of Australia, which sits at the forefront of global efforts to regulate social media. Australia passed landmark laws in November banning under 16s from social media, one of the world's toughest crackdowns on popular sites such as Facebook, Instagram and X. The move sparked a fierce backlash from big tech companies, who variously described the laws as rushed, vague and problematic. And Serbian students leading anti-corruption protest on Monday announced a demand for immediate early elections, arguing that they are the only solution to the months-long political crisis. While the Balkan nation has been rocked by months of student-led protests sparked by the deaths of 16 people when a railway station roof collapsed in the northern city of Novi Sad in November. Public outrage over the disaster, weekly seen as a symbol of deep-rooted corruption, has fueled the largest wave of unrest in Serbia since the 1990s, with regular mass protests and prolonged blockages of university faculties. The protests were put mounting pressure on President Aleksandar Vucic's government, prompting the resignation of several high-ranking officials, including the Prime Minister. And at least 3 people died and 9 others, including 2 children, were missing after a small boat capsized in choppy seas of the California coast, north of San Diego. The small boat capsized in choppy seas of the California coast in a suspected migrant smuggling attempt. Some of the boat's occupants were also from India. 4 survivors were transported to hospitals, and 2 other people suspected to be smugglers found in nearby beach were detained by authorities. Well, the Consulate General of India in San Francisco has condoled the loss of lives of Indians in tragedy. In a tweet, it said, and I quote, "An Indian family is also affected in this tragedy, while 2 Indian children are missing. The parents are undergoing treatment at Scripps Memorial Hospital. The Consulate is providing all necessary assistance to the affected Indian family in coordination with local authorities. Our thoughts and prayers are with the victims of this tragedy." And Bolivia's Cochabamba city is struggling with piles of uncollected garbage as the region enters its 2nd consecutive week of conflict over waste disposal on Monday. The municipal landfill Caracara has closed its doors, leaving the city without options for waste disposal. The municipality has set up another emergency dump in the neighboring municipality of Kolka Pirhua, but the residents blocked it, leaving the city with no options. While some residents try to cope with the garbage and foul odors, others, like local school mothers, have blocked nearby streets to urge authorities to address the trash problem, citing health risk for the children. And severe rains in the municipality of Itaguf, located in northwestern Colombia, led to a mudslide that caused extensive damage and resulted in the death of 1 person. A strong storm caused the Los Olives Creek to overflow and a current to go down the streets, carrying vegetation and vehicles in its path on Monday morning. National media reported that 1 person died and another was injured in the area. The authorities declared a state of public calamity and reported that at least 35 families were affected in the municipality in Itagüí. And Peruvian President Dina Boluarte announced that mining operations in the northern district of Pataz will be halted for 30 days following the abduction and murder of 13 gold miners by illegal groups. Mining and Energy Minister Jorge Montoro stated that the 30-day suspension could be prolonged if necessary. The government also intends to establish a military base in the area and enforce a mighty curfew from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. Peru is a major copper producer. Gold and silver are mainly mined in the month where criminal gangs in Pataz have allegedly killed nearly 40 people, including contractors and artisanal miners. Illegal miners have seized control of multiple areas previously managed by PDVSA since 2020. The region was already under a state of emergency with a strong police and military presence following early assaults on PDVSA's facilities.
All mining activity in the province of Pataz will be suspended for 30 days, extendable to facilitate the deployment of our armed forces and national police. In light of the events in Pataz, the government has decided that in the coming hours, while we work on the legal framework, we will declare a curfew throughout the district of Pataz from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. The armed forces will take full control of the La Poderosa mining area, and we will set up a military base in the district of Pataz.
Well, the crowds flocked to the outlying Cheong Chau Island in Hong Kong to celebrate the Bun Festival, held each year in a century-old tradition to ward off evil and pray for peace and blessings. The festivities began with a parade of children in costumes called Piu Sik, which translates as floating colour. Children dressed as legendary deities or historic characters are carried on strands above the gathered crowds meandering through the island's narrow lanes. The highlight of the festival comes at midnight with a bun scrambling competition where climbers race up a tower covered with plastic buns. Whoever gets the most buns of greatest value wins the race. Buns near the top have higher value. And still to come on DD India News Now. Addressing the Governor's business session at the 58th ADB annual meeting, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman chronicles India's growth story and vision for Viksit Bharat 2047. While number one, Yannick Sinner set to return at Italian Open after 3-month doping ban. And celebrities dazzle at the fashion's biggest night of the year, the Met Gala.
गर फिरदौस बर्रुए ज़मी अस्त हमी अस्तो हमी अस्तो हमी अस्त Jammu and Kashmir, nature's finest works. A land of verdant valleys, pristine lakes, striking autumns, unforgettable majestic beauty. A place of unwavering devotion, wholehearted smiles, and warm hospitality. World famous for its exquisite artistry. Leader in diverse agricultural products. Heartland of winter sports. Jammu and Kashmir is vibrant, diverse, ambitious, future-focused, full of life. Welcome to heaven on earth.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Now. Lipakshi Khurana, and on to some business news now. India's Finance and Corporate Affairs Minister Nirmala Sitharaman met ADB President Masato Kanda and Italian Finance Minister Giancarlo Giorgetti and talked about the initiatives India is taking to foster economic growth. In a meeting with Masato Kanda during the 58th ADB annual meeting in Milan, Sitharaman reiterated that India focuses on private sector-led economic growth and has been consistently creating a conducive policy ecosystem through bold initiatives. Sitharaman is leading the Indian delegation of officials from the Finance Ministry to attend the 58th annual meeting of the Board of Governors of the Asian Development Bank that is taking place in Milan, Italy till May 7th. While addressing the Governor's business session at the 58th ADB annual meeting in Milan, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman emphasized India's growth story and vision for Viksit Bharat 2047. She also endorsed ADB's attributes are crucial in our collective journey towards a prosperous, inclusive, resilient and sustainable Asia and Pacific. And Ford Motor Company reported a 65% drop in first quarter net income and withdrew its full year earnings forecast, saying it expects import tariffs to reduce profits by $1.5 billion in 2025. Ford reported the drop in first quarter profits, citing a near-term drag on auto sales from new vehicle launches as it withdrew its forecast amid tariff uncertainty. The carmaker estimated a full year hit of about $1.5 billion in operating earnings, following President Donald Trump's myriad tariff actions since returning to the White House in January. Profits came in at $471 million, beating analyst expectations, but just over a third of the level in the 2024 period, with revenues falling 5% to $40.7 billion. In the first quarter, Ford wholesale units fell 7% from the year-ago level. And you're watching DT News Hour. Time now for some sports news. Sunrisers Hyderabad IPL playoff hopes ended after their match against Delhi Capitals was abandoned due to heavy rain at the Rajiv Gandhi Stadium on Monday. Hyderabad's pace attack, led by Pat Cummins, restricted Delhi Capitals to 133 for 7 in the first innings before rain forced officials to call off the game. With both teams sharing a point each, Delhi Capitals remained in contention for a top 4 spot with 13 points from 11 games, while Sunrisers' campaign effectively ended with just 7 points from their 11 matches. The abandonment marked a disappointing season for Sunrisers Hyderabad, who failed to replicate their successful batting performance from 2024 when they reached the final. Although before the rain interruption, Hyderabad displayed impressive bowling performance and appeared on course for their 4th victory of the season. The rain-affected match denied Hyderabad the opportunity to purchase the modest target, forcing them to settle for a shared point for ending their playoff aspirations. And Italy's tennis world number 1, Jannik Sinner, will return to actions this week following 3-month doping ban. His first opponent on his return from a 3-month doping ban in the Italian Open could be compatriot Federico Sinner. Sinner has been given a bye into the second round, where he awaits the winner of 18-year-old Sinner's match with Argentine Mariano Navone. The 3-time Grand Slam champion was banned after he twice tested positive for traces of clusterball in March last year. WADA accepted that Sinner did not gain any competitive advantage from the banned substance, and he bore no fault for an accidental contamination. And Barcelona manager Hansi Flick confirmed that striker Robert Lewandowski has been declared fit to return from his hamstring injury, but is set to chart on the bench in their Champions League semi-final second leg at Inter Milan on Tuesday. The 36-year-old Polish striker, who has netted 40 goals for Barcelona in all competitions this season, had been sidelined for his club's last 4 games. After sustaining an injury on April 19th, he missed their Copa del Rey final victory over rivals Real Madrid in the first leg of the Champions League semi against Inter. Barcelona's hopes of reaching their first Champions League final in a decade are lifted by Lewandowski's return, especially after an exhilarating 3-3 draw in the first leg. However, the team will be without key full-backs Jules Koundé and Alejandro Balde, both sidelined their injuries. And Xiao Xintong became the first Chinese player to win the World Snooker Championship with a victory over Mark Williams at the Crucible Theatre on Monday. The 28-year-old won by 18 frames to 12 despite a spirited comeback attempt from Williams. Zhao received a 20-month ban in January 2023 after a match-fixing scandal that rocked the sport. The repercussions of the ban meant he was classed as an amateur at his event and needed to get through 4 rounds of qualifying to reach the Crucible, a grueling run to a title that began on 7th of April. The final was already historic no matter the result, as the 50-year-old Williams became the oldest player to reach the finale. And multiple Olympic swimming champions Gary Hall Jr. received replicas of his 10 Olympic medals after the originals were destroyed during the Los Angeles wildfires in January. The medals were presented to him by International Olympic Committee President Thomas Bach during a ceremony at the IOC headquarters in Lausanne. Hall represented the United States at the 1996, 2000 and 2004 Olympics, winning 5 games 5 gold, 3 silver and 2 bronze medals. The 50-year-old was forced to leave the medals behind at his home during the fires which tore through the Los Angeles area. And as the Met Gala 2025 kicked off, a slew of dazzling stars hit the red carpet at New York's Metropolitan Museum of Art. The exhibition showcased historical and contemporary garments and accessories, as well as drawings, prints, paintings and photographs that have shaped the understanding of Black identities and experiences. This year's theme, Superfine Tailoring Black Style, examines Black dandyism from the 18th century to the present. All right, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. Well, we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Kuran from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.